Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of My Favorite Norns scripts. Today I'm going to be talking about Sonos Circuit's new script, mlre. mlre is an expanded version of MLR and adds some additional features as well as quality of life improvements. Sonos Circuit was kind enough to send this over to me a couple of months ago and I've been absolutely loving it. mlre has a similar layout to MLR, but there are 2 additional pages now. From the main screen you can access 3 of the 5. To get to the other 2 you'll need to use the grid. Like the original MLR, encoder 1 will move between the pages, encoders 2 and 3 are used to adjust the parameters, and button 2 is used to swap between the top and bottom row of controls. Button 3 can also be used to flip between the pages. I'm going to start with the first page. This is the record view. On this page you can adjust the volume, pan position, record level, and overdub amount for the selected track. The next page has the filter controls. Cutoff sets the cutoff frequency, and filter Q controls the resonance. Lower values will be more resonant. Type allows you to switch the filter type, as well as toggle the filter off. The types are low pass, high pass, band pass, and band reject. Dry level sets the dry signal level. If the filter is toggled off, then this control will be disabled. The third page is the Transpose Page. This is one of the new features. Detune can lower or raise the pitch by an octave or make fine adjustments. Transpose will pitch shift the track by the degrees of the current scale. You can change the scale in the parameters menu, which I'll cover a little later on. Finally, we have rate and level slew, which control how quickly speed and volume changes will occur. The 3 pages I just covered will affect only the track you're currently focused on. You can switch between the different tracks using the grid, and the current track will be displayed in the top left corner. The last 2 pages can only be accessed by using the grid, and I'll cover how to get to them during the grid section of the video. The 4th page is the LFO page. There are 6 different LFOs that can be assigned to various parameters. You can move between the LFOs using button 3. Frequency will set the frequency or speed of the LFO. Offset will offset the output from center. LFO target determines what parameter will be affected by the LFO. The targets are volume, pan, dub, transpose, rate slew, and cutoff for tracks 1 through 6. Shape sets the shape of the LFO. The options are sine, square, or sample and hold. There's one final parameter here that you can access by pressing the Alt key on the grid. Instead of displaying the shape control, now you can adjust the range. The range can compress the values the LFO is outputting. The options are low, mid, or high. The final page is the clip view. This is similar to the clip view page in the original MLR. On this page, encoder 2 is used to navigate the clip actions menu, and encoder 3 is used to adjust the clip length. The clip actions are load, clear, save, and reset. Load will allow you to load an audio file from Norns. Clear will clear the active buffer and resize the clip to the corresponding length setting. Save will save the buffer, and reset will set the clip to its original length. To select one of these actions, use button 2. The length control will set the length of the clip in quarter notes. To change the length, use button 3. Holding button 1 will bring up the internal routing controls. The outputs of tracks 1 through 4 can be sent to track 5, and tracks 1 through 5 can be sent to track 6. This is done post-filter and pre-fader, meaning that the level will be based on the send level. You can adjust the send levels with encoders 2 and 3. The parameters menu is pretty straightforward for how complex the script is. I'm going to go through everything in order. Scale sets the scale that the transpose control will follow. You can also add custom scales. Adding your own scales is explained in the user guide, which I highly recommend checking out. I'll be linking the PDF in the video description. Record threshold sets the minimum level for one-shot recording to start. Tempo map mode allows you to toggle between resize and repitch. Tracks aren't tempo mapped by default, but if you enable tempo mapping, resize will time stretch the recorded clip without changing the pitch. If repitch is selected, then the clip's playback speed will be altered and the pitch will change. The macro submenu lets you control the behavior of the macro slots as well as the recall mode. The original MLR had 4 pattern recorders, but this has been expanded in mlre. Now by default there are 4 pattern recorders and 4 recall/snapshot slots. Using the macro slots control, you can change the slot behavior. The options are either the default 4 and 4, or patterns only, or recall only. If you choose patterns only or recall only, then on the main menu you can hold button 1 and press button 2 to swap between patterns and recall. This allows you to get full access to all 8 pattern and recall slots. Recall mode controls the behavior of the recall slots. The options are manual recall or snapshot. Manual recall will store the key presses you make while it's active. Snapshot will take a full picture of all 6 tracks and can recall playback state, mute state, playback position, loop settings, speed, reverse, and transposition. If you choose manual recall, you can use those slots, switch to snapshot, use those slots, and both will stay active. You can then move back and forth between them using the recall mode. I know this is probably confusing, so when I get to the grid portion of the video, I'll do a walkthrough on this. The next submenu is the MIDI settings menu. This allows you to set which MIDI device will receive start and stop messages. The MIDI transport toggle allows MIDI start and stop messages to be toggled on or off. The track control submenu gives you control over whatever track you're focused on at the moment. Here you can start playback, toggle on or off mute, record arm the track, change the playback direction, and increase or decrease the playback speed. After that is the randomization submenu. From here you can toggle on or off auto randomize as well as set which parameters will be affected when randomization occurs. The available parameters are transpose, volume, pan, direction, loop, speed with range controls, and cutoff with range controls. There are a couple different ways to get randomization to occur, and I'll touch on them in the grid section of the video. The next group of menus are for each individual track's controls. These are all identical, so I'll only be going over track 1. The first control lets you switch between the main and temporary buffer. SonoCircuit explains the way the buffers work on page 9 of the manual. Each of the 8 clips can have a maximum length of 42 seconds and are assigned to a specific region of the soft cut buffer. Each clip has 2 sides, main buffer and temporary buffer. The main buffer is stored to disk together with a preset, and the temporary buffer is discarded when the script is closed. You can copy audio from one buffer to the other. The rest of the parameters in the menu, with the exception of one group, are all available from the main page. The warble section lets you control the tape warble effect. Amount is a dry-wet control. Depth controls how extreme the warble is, and speed controls how quickly the warbles happen. Warble is enabled from the grid and will also be covered during that portion of the video. The final group is the LFO controls. These controls are all the same, but you can also enable the LFO from here instead of having to do it from the grid. mlre's grid has even more going on than MLR's. This should look pretty familiar, but there are a few additional things to cover. I'm going to call the rows 1 through 8 and the columns A through P. 1A through 1D allow you to switch between the different pages. 1A is the record page, 1B is the cut page, 1C is the transpose page, and 1D is the LFO page. To access the clip page, hold the Alt button, which is found at 1P, and press 1O. 1E through 1L are the macro slots. If you have these in their default configuration, then 1E through 1H will be pattern recorders, and 1I through 1L will be recall slots. I'm going to come back to the pattern recorders at the end of the grid section because they can be a little bit confusing. 1M is the stop all button. This will stop all playing tracks and patterns. 1N is the mod button. Mod and Alt are modifier keys and used for different button combos. 1O is the quantization or Q toggle. When quantization is toggled on, grid key presses are locked to the quantization value set in the clip view window, and quantization is linked to the system's clock. Like I said before, 1P is the Alt button, and like the mod button, this is also used for different key combos. There are a few combos you can do with just these 4 keys. We already went over what the Alt and Q buttons do, but Alt and Mod will set the playback position of all playing tracks to the first step and clear all loops, and Alt and Stop will activate Alt Run. I'll cover what Alt Run does in a little bit. Finally, holding Mod, pressing Alt, and then releasing Mod will activate Hold Mode. Hold Mode allows you to create one-step loops by pressing a key either in Cut View or in the bottom row of the Record or Transpose views. Holding Alt and pressing Record View will clear the active clip of the focus track. Holding Alt and pressing Transpose View will clear both soft cut buffers for all tracks. Now that row 1 is out of the way, we can move on to the page-specific controls. I'm going to start with the record page. Rows 2 through 7 correspond to the 6 different tracks. These are all identical, so I'll just be going over row 2, which is for track 1. 2A is the record toggle. You can hold Alt and press this to activate fade-in mode. In this mode, the dub level determines how much the volume will decay each pass. This is a cool way to get almost a delay type effect. 2B is the one-shot recording key. Pressing this will record arm the track, and recording will start once the threshold set in the parameters menu is crossed. The track will record until it reaches the end and then immediately start playing back. If you stop recording before it reaches the end, then a loop will be created ending at that point. If you hold Alt and press the key, auto length mode will be activated. In this mode, instead of a loop being created that matches the length of the recording, the entire clip will be trimmed. 2C through 2F are the focus buttons. Pressing any of these will bring the focus to the current track. This is reflected in the Norns main screen. Holding Alt and pressing any of these buttons will tempo map the track to the system BPM. Holding Mod and pressing any of these buttons will swap between the main and temporary buffer. 2H is the reverse toggle. This changes the playback direction of the current track. Holding Alt and pressing this button will enable the tape warble effect. 2I through 2O set the playback speed of the track, with 2L being normal speed. The speed will halve as you move to the left and double as you move to the right. Holding Alt and pressing 2L is one of the 2 ways to randomize the parameters. This will follow the randomization rules you set in the parameters menu. You can record the random changes with the pattern recorders, which is a really cool way to get multiple gestures recorded at the same time. The final key in this row is 2P. This is the playback toggle. If this is illuminated, it means the track is playing, and if it's off, it means the track is stopped. Holding Alt and pressing the key will mute the track, but keep it playing. Holding Mod and pressing this key will toggle on track select mode. If track select is on, then auto randomize will occur after a one-shot recording. This is the second way to introduce randomization, but unlike the previous way, this will only happen if auto randomization is toggled on in the parameters menu. The other thing that track select enables is Alt Run. Alt Run is a nice way to toggle between two sets of tracks on the fly. I'm going to show how this works really quick because it can be a little bit confusing. I've toggled on Alt Run for all of the tracks, so now I'm going to play the first 3. These are all playing back. Now if I hold Alt and press Stop All, it'll swap between the 2. The final element of the record page is found in row 8. This displays the focus track's playback location. You can interact with this row the same way you would on the MLR clip page, and you can jump around the buffer and create loops. The next page is the cut page. This is very similar to the original MLR cut page, but there are a few new features. Like the record page, rows 2 through 7 correspond to tracks 1 through 6. Each row behaves the same way as the original MLR and row 8 of the record page. You can pick a start point and make loops. Holding the Mod key and pressing any of the keys will create a 1-key loop. You can do the same button combination I mentioned before to enter hold mode, which will make all key presses be 1-key loops. The Mod key enables a temporary hold, and the next key you press will start playback as normal. Holding Alt and pressing anywhere in the row will stop that track's playback. The final element of this page is found in row 8. These will transpose the focus track by the degrees of your selected scale. 8H and 8I will reset the pitch. Moving to the right will raise it, and moving to the left will lower it. The third page is the Transpose Page. This page is an expanded version of row 8 of the cut page. Once again, buttons H and I will reset the pitch, and moving to the right will raise it, and the left will lower it. There are 2 button combos on this page. Holding Alt and pressing either key H or I will stop playback of the current track. Holding Mod and pressing key H will halve the playback rate for the current track, and holding Mod and pressing key I will double the rate. Once again, row 8 will display the playhead location of the current track, and it can be interacted with the same way as on the record and cut pages. Next up, we have the LFOs page. From here, you can toggle an LFO on or off, set the depth, shape, track destination, range, and target. Since these controls are all identical between the 6 LFOs, I'm only going to cover LFO 1, which is found in row 2. 2A toggles the selected LFO on or off. 2B through 2P sets the depth, with 2B being 0% and 2P being 100%. 8A, B, and C are used to change the shape of the LFO. 8A is sine, 8B is square, and 8C is sample and hold. If you hold Alt, these 3 buttons will instead control the LFO range, with 8A being low, 8B being mid, and 8C being high. 8D through 8I will set the track destination, with 8D being track 1 and 8I being track 6. 8J will clear the current LFO's mapping. 8K through 8P set the target for the selected LFO. 8K is volume, 8L is pan, 8M is overdub amount, 8N is transpose, 8O is rate slew, and 8P is for filter cutoff. For example, if I wanted to set LFO1 to control track 3's rate slew, I'd first press 8F to set the track destination to track 3, and then 8O to set the target to rate slew. The final page is the clip page. From here you can select which clip or recording plays in each track, configure the inputs to each track, and internally route tracks 1 through 4 to tracks 5 and 6. Rows 2 through 7 display the selected clip for tracks 1 through 6. Up to 8 audio clips or live buffer recordings can be stored at once. You can use this to quickly jump between different audio sources for the tracks. Holding Mod and pressing any of the slots will copy the active buffer of the selected clip to the non-active buffer. The next group of controls handle the routing for the individual tracks. These are spread out over rows 2 through 7 in columns J through M. Since these are all identical, I'll just be covering track 1. 2J will set the input to left and right. 2K will set the input to only the left input, and 2L will set the input to only the right input. 2M will bypass the input to that track. All 6 of the tracks are mono, but by setting tracks 1, 3, and 5 to left only, and 2, 4, and 6 to right only, and recording them in pairs, you can set up 3 stereo tracks. Column O turns on the internal routing for tracks 1 through 4. If this is enabled, the selected tracks will output to track 5. Column P does the same, except it outputs to track 6. 7O will toggle on or off the ADC to soft cut. By default, it's on. And 7P will toggle on or off the Norns internal tape to soft cut. Finally, 8A through 8H sets the quantization division. The resolution gets finer as you move to the right, with 8A being 1 bar and 8H being 1/32 note. Before I get out of here, I want to spend a minute covering the macro recorders because they're, in my opinion, what really make the script shine. mlre brings a couple of huge additions like the ability to overdub on pattern recorders and the expansion of the pattern recorders and snapshot slots to 8 each. To overdub a pattern, first record a series of key presses, then hold Mod and press the same pattern slot. To stop a pattern, press the same slot again. To clear the pattern, hold Alt and press the slot. Now I want to go over one more time the difference between the manual recalls and snapshots. Manual recalls will only save the state of keys you press. Snapshots, on the other hand, recall the state of the entire script, including the playback rate, direction, and locations of all tracks. One cool interaction is that if you arm a pattern recorder and then swap between the different snapshots or manual recalls, the state of the different keys will be recorded. One thing to note is that LFOs exist separately from the macros and their state, and any parameter changes they make won't be recorded. So if I set these to snapshot and I start these tracks playing back, and I change their playback directions and speeds, I can press one of these to take a snapshot of that exact moment. If I press this one, it'll take a second snapshot. Now when I press these, it'll jump between the 2 different parts of time. This will also record tracks that are stopped. Now if I return to the other 2, it'll start them playing again. Manual recall, on the other hand, will only record button presses. I've returned everything to normal. Now if I press this again, it'll jump back to what I recorded. mlre really clicked with me as a tool for beat making, and that's what I was mainly using it for. I was getting a bit frustrated with some of the limitations though, mainly the 4 pattern recorder slots and the lack of pitch transposition. mlre addressed both of those issues and made the script feel much more playable. Having the clip view at the bottom of the record page is brilliant and cuts down on the page flipping. The addition of one-shot recording with the ability to automatically set the loop length to the end of your recording is another game changer. I know there was a lot covered in this episode, so like I said earlier, I highly recommend checking out the manual. Sono-Circuit did a great job with the documentation, and I reference it all the time for some of the more complicated key combos. That's all I have for today. As always, thank you for watching, and if you have any topics or scripts you'd like to see me cover in a future episode, leave a comment below. I'll see you next week.